Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. My name is Dave Savage. Every Tuesday, I am interviewing someone amazing, whether that's a top-performing mortgage professional, like the top 1% that use Mortgage Coach. I'm always looking for someone amazing to interview, and I have been on the road. Last week, I was actually in Washington, D.C. at the MBA advocacy event, where I actually got to see Ann, and Ann is today's guest. So, Ann, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be here again.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to kind of unpacking for everybody how they can all get more business from CPAs and financial planners. But I will have to say that that week in Washington, D.C. was amazing. I learned a lot. The week before that, I was at the MBA Tech event. I was on a panel with Zillow, Roostify, and Hearsay Social. I learned a lot. I mean, some of that I'm going to bring into this call, but I would just set the table that over the coming weeks, some of the things that we've learned, some of the things that we're just putting together for everybody, it's going to be pretty enlightening. So keep an eye on the Mortgage Coach calendar. We've got some big events coming. So I'm going to bring Ann in about 15, 20 minutes, and we're going to really break down how to get business from CPAs and financial planners. I do want to remind everybody this call is recorded. So there's going to be a lot of slides, a lot of content that you're going to want to listen to again. So check that out. Before I bring in our first guest, Steve Harney, I also want to remind everybody that we've got a big event this week. On the 21st, Joe Patur, our president, is going to be delivering a presentation around how to increase referral business with effective mobile technology. Special guest Mitch Kiter is going to be on the call, and we're really going to talk about how you can generate more referrals, how you can do it more effectively, and how you can be more compliant. So don't miss that call on the 21st. But we're going to start with, how can we get more business from advisors? And there's a book I wrote, I don't know, it's been, maybe I want to say 20 years, but at least 15 years, called The Art of Referral. And this little white paper book, it's about 28 pages, 27 pages, it really was how I started Mortgage Coach. The journey of Mortgage Coach started within the journey of how I got business from CPAs and financial planners. So for those of you who haven't read it, it's been read tens of thousands of times in the mortgage business. Those of you who haven't, you can download it from our GoToMeeting. But to kick this off, I thought having Steve Harney with Bridge Builders kick the whole thing off with current insights around what's happening in the market, and we're going to tie it all together. So we're going to start with Steve sharing his market insights. Then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of how to get more business from CPAs and financial planners. So I don't know that Steve needs a lot of introduction. He's such a regular in our community. But Steve, I have handed off the screen to you. So go ahead and grab it and start sharing some of the insights.
You don't, oh, there it is, Dave. I have it. Okay. Hello, everyone. It's truly an honor to be here, especially with Ann Loehr being on right behind me. I rearranged my schedule to make sure that I was able to stay on the call for the full hour, because I want to hear what Ann has to say. She's a remarkable person with a remarkable message. And, Dave, I don't know how you do it week after week, keep on getting great people on. So what I want to do today is I switched around what we're going to be talking about just a little bit to really enhance, or I hope to set up, everything Ann's going to teach you. But the second half of this is going to be really, really powerful. But what I want to talk about right now for the next 10 minutes is the power of in leadership. And the word in is colored in a slightly different color, because I believe that to really effectively build your mortgage business, and of course we always talk about those great real estate agents, those superstar agents, those agents that have the big teams that you're trying to get to, they are business people. Just like CPAs are business people and financial planners are business people. They're business people, and you have to show them that you're a leader in your community also. So let's take a look at what I mean by in leadership. Basically, I break it down into 4 words. To be seen as a thought leader in the industry, you have to do 4 things. You have to inform the people you're in front of. You have to instruct the people you're in front of. You have to inspire the people you're in front of. And then as you're building your culture, you want to invite more like-minded people to join. So let's break that down, and we'll do it in a quick fashion. Number one, when I talk about informed, this is what I mean. There's a lot of confusion in the market right now. So the consumer, whether it be a buyer or a seller, is not really sure what to do. And sometimes that doubt creates fear. And that fear creates paralysis. So they do nothing. They don't sell their house and move up to the bigger house. They don't buy that first house. They sign a lease instead because they think in some way that's more secure because they're not sure what's taking place in the market. I want to give you one example of what I would inform every agent of and also talk to the CPAs and the financial planners about. And that's a report that came out just recently that talked about significant equity. The definition of significant equity is any house that has more than 20% equity. Because those people are capable of selling a house and moving up, moving down, or moving down and buying that vacation home that eventually will be their retirement home. But here's the challenge, ladies and gentlemen. 37% of the people in the country believe that they have greater than 20% equity, when in reality, the stats prove that 72.6% have it. That means there are over 35%, more than 1 out of 3 of your neighbors, have significant equity in their home, but don't know it. Now again, from a real estate side, when you're dealing with those top agents, that means there are people that are capable of selling their house and moving on to their dream home. They just don't know they're capable yet. So getting this information into your agent's hands are pretty important, and we'll talk about that in a second. But also, whether you're dealing with anyone in the financial realm, they can help these people because there's an equity there, and maybe they can use that equity to help them build, maybe start a new business, help the kids get through college, maybe reinvest that money in a certain way. But the consumer, the homeowner, has to first realize they have that equity there to do something with. And ladies and gentlemen, it's pretty much across the board. This is the percentage of homes with significant equity by state. And we can see that almost every state, the gray states don't give that data out, but almost every state has more than half. As a matter of fact, every state has more than half. Actually, almost every state has 2/3 of every one of their homes with significant equity. And these are people that have a mortgage and have that equity. 30% of the homes in this country don't even have a mortgage. We're not even counting those. So just informing your realtor partners, informing your business relationships that, you know what, one of the challenges in the market right now, because of rising prices over the last couple of years, people have more equity than they think. That's the information piece. Now, once you give them that information, the next step is you have to instruct them. Well, what are we going to do about that? Creating confidence from fear. So instead of them not being sure what to do, let's tell them exactly what to do. Help them with that. Because equity is an issue, we've come up with a concept, the Professional Equity Analysis Review. Agents across the country now, because of our tutelage, it was an idea from Steve up in Iowa, all right, but agents now across the country are now using this and contacting their homeowner and saying, listen, if you want to know how much equity you have in your home, I can come over, take a quick 5-minute look through the house. I'll figure out what the value is. You let me know what your mortgage amount is, and let's figure out exactly what that equity situation is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I'm talking about it from the realtor side. But when you start listening to Ann, you're going to also realize that from the financial component of it, having that extra equity, knowing that that money is sitting there, might cause people to do certain things. Because when we do that, and we have to realize 72.6% of homeowners with a mortgage have significant equity in their home. They can move up to a larger home, purchase your dream home, downsize for retirement, find a home that meets your needs, move close to the family, and all those things are from the real estate side. But remember, if they wanted to start their own business and they needed some seed capital, many companies, that's where that seed capital came from, a home equity loan. And maybe the financial planner could help them along that. My son just got accepted to Dartmouth in their master's program. We're definitely, instead of going into our retirement account, we're definitely looking at maybe we should get a HELOC or a second mortgage because we have a lot of equity in both of the homes we own. But knowing what that equity is important. And instructing your agents, first informing them that that situation exists, then instructing them in how they can best help the consumers in their marketplace is important. And the last thing is, before you invite them, is inspire them. Creating action from inaction. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever you're in front of, one of the things that you want to do is be seen as a thought leader and seen as inspirational. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look about extrinsic versus intrinsic motivations. Most of us believe that the extrinsic motivation is really the most powerful, the desire for power and status. And there's no question in our society that is true. But we also have to remember that there's another motivation that people get from understanding the meaning of something, from growing, from learning, from helping people. And I think that sometimes we as leaders don't realize the importance of that second type of motivation. The Authentic Leadership Institute put it this way: there's nothing wrong with wanting the trappings of success, but real confidence and true success comes from the feeling that you are doing things for the right reasons. They're going to make money understanding that there's an equity situation available right now, but they're also going to help a lot of families. Understanding people's intrinsic motivations. They have to see that you, whether it be a financial planner, whether it be a CPA, whether it be a divorce attorney, whether it be a top agent, they have to see that you have a clear purpose and vision, because those are the key factors that they want to follow in a leader. To be a visionary leader, you must be focused on the future and able to communicate a powerful message. So when we're talking about talking to the great business people in your community, the CPAs, the financial planners, the attorneys, the great agents, they need to know that you have a future plan. The example I like to use there is Arthur Guinness. When Arthur Guinness decided in 1759 to open a brewery, he signed a lease for a 4-acre site in downtown Dublin. What were the terms of that lease? £45 a year for 9,000 years. Ladies and gentlemen, by signing that lease, he communicated to a lot of different people. He communicated to the people he was about to hire, we're going to be here for a long time. He communicated to the vendors that he was buying supplies from, that maybe when he first started his company, he struggled with those payments. He communicated to them, don't worry about it. We're going to be here for a long time. And to all his competition out there, he put them on warning. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for a long time. Now that younger son who's going to Dartmouth that I just mentioned, a couple of years ago, he spent about a year on my dime going across Europe. And somehow he wound up in Dublin. And somehow when he wound up in Dublin, he wound up in the Arthur Guinness brewery that we're talking about. That lease is under special lighting in a special glass case and is part of the tour they give of the brewery. That's how important that lease still is to them. Think big. Let the people you're dealing with know that you're putting a special group of business people in your marketplace together. And that group of people that you're putting together is going to dominate the real estate part of that business for the next 20 years. Think big, talk big, because people are going to follow that as much as they're going to follow the money. And once you have that culture, just invite. Find other people in your marketplace that are just like that and make sure they understand what you're doing and how powerful it is what you're doing, and invite them in. Now again, you have one of the best people available about to come on. Ann is phenomenal. She's going to teach you how to add, how to invite, some of the greatest financial planners, whether they be CPAs or financial planners in your marketplace. Let's build that team and make that thing really, really special. On the real estate side, ladies and gentlemen, this Wednesday, we're doing a strategy call for all the bridge builders. The 5 agent personalities that exist in every real estate office. We're going to talk about the 2 that you should stay away from like it's the plague. And we're also going to talk about the 3 that you can do business with and how different the 3 of them are and how you have to approach each one of them differently. And we'll go into a greater enhancement of some of the things we even covered today. I want to end by inviting anyone that's on this call to go ahead and join us. This is exclusively for bridge builders. But I want to invite you on to this particular strategy call because I think it could really help your business, and it ties in what Ann's going to be about to tell us. She's going to really be talking about the great people, all right, in your marketplace, the great business people, a segment of them. Well, and on this particular strategy call, we're going to be talking about the great realtors in your marketplace and how to build a team with them involved. Well, that's it, Dave. And I try to get through that as quickly as possible because I'm excited about listening to Ann.
All right, Steve. Well, you were fantastic. Again, everybody, I put a link in chat to sign up for Steve's program. Check it out tomorrow. As you know, everything Steve Harney does, we believe in. He brings tremendous value to the mortgage coach community. The slides that he went through have been uploaded into our GoToMeeting control panel under the handout section, so you can download these slides. So, Steve, feel free to jump in, add some thoughts. I'm going to set the table for Ann. Ann, before I set the table for a few minutes, anything you want to say about Steve's comments or presentation before we move into the how to get business from advisors?
Absolutely, Dave. I want to thank Steve. I love the inform, instruct, inspire, invite methodology. It's easy to remember. And I love how it's all about people and the intrinsic motivations. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about when we talk about generations and what motivates people. When we crack that, that is then when we start to figure out what makes success, what makes teams. So, Steve, thank you so much. That was a beautiful, beautiful, quick way to understand how to relate to people, how to inspire them, and how to invite them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann, for saying that.
All right, guys. So let's talk a little bit about how to get business from CPAs and financial planners. Something that I built my mortgage practice on, something that I founded Mortgage Coach on. Now, in addition to Steve's slides, we've also put the book called The Art of Referral. I do want to put a disclaimer. I mean, this is something that I wrote over 15 years ago, but it really was my sales process. When I figured out how to build partnerships with financial planners and CPAs, and I had hundreds of them that referred business to me on an annual basis, this was the playbook. And I'm not going to go through, I'm going to highlight the playbook because it sets up Ann nicely and it sets up the entire call. But if you want to read it in detail, download it and read it, but do remember it's a few years old. But, you know, it starts with mindset. And what I had called the trusted advisor's edge was something that just because I read so much, because I had so much expertise, I had so much passion around knowledge that mattered to both families and to CPAs and financial planners, because I had that mindset, it gave me an advantage. So I talk about, if you want to really crush it with CPAs and financial planners, it starts with your confidence in your attitude. In this book, I also get into how to find them, you know, so how to find more than you can handle. I get into how to contact and set up appointments. Now, again, how I did it back in the day, this is pre-Google. You know, so this book has been updated with Google being a new tool. But when I wrote this, it was even before email. You know, we used fax. Steve, you probably get a kick out of reading this because, you know, you and I both did business back in the day, pre-Google, pre-email. Fax was like a big idea back in the day that I built my CPA and financial planner business.
Stop dating me, but I remember I used to work for the phone company, and we had the first fax machine the phone companies did ever done, and we were amazed that somebody could put a piece of paper in some place and come out the other end. When I see what we have today, I'm like blown away by it because that blew me away many years ago.
Yeah, no doubt. I started with the yellow pages. But anyways, then it gets into, you know, section 4 is how to create instant credibility, and that really was what caused me to create Mortgage Coach. Is I wanted to come in, meet with the CPA or financial planner, and within 5 minutes, ask a few questions and show them how I delivered mortgage options to a family all on one sheet of paper, and for them to just go, oh my goodness, this is the way it should be done. And that was Mortgage Coach. So we talk about that. So let's set the table for Ann here. So we all know that when it comes to delivering options and educating families, fee worksheet's not the best way to do it. Delivering options is a way to do it. We all know in terms of Mortgage Coach, we're all about doing that in a mobile experience because that is the best educational teaching tool. Whether or not you're sending options to a family, whether or not they're coming into your office and you're delivering the information in a way that they can take it, or whether you're meeting with a CPA or financial planner, it's all about using modern tools. It's all about creating videos. So everybody on this call knows that, but not everybody on this call executes around that. And the challenge is, some of you on this call are millennials and you're digital natives, and using your mobile device in all kinds of strategic ways is natural. Some of you are Gen X, and yeah, you're kind of mobile savvy, but not like the millennials. And most of you are boomers, and it's like, you know, it's a whole new behavior, it's a whole new world. And the challenge with the CPA and financial planner business today, and not only the challenge but the opportunity, is that every time you're trying to be the captain of a wealth team with a family, you're dealing with every single generation. You know, there's you know, grandparents, there's parents, and there's kids, and they're all opportunities. Same thing goes with financial planners. There's a lot of different types of financial planners. So before we get into, let's just say, the tactics of getting business from CPAs and financial planner, there's no one better than Ann Loehr. Gosh, you messed me up, Ann, when you did the rhymes with hair. Loehr. And Loehr. So no one better than Ann, because not only does she understand all the different generations, what makes them tick, she speaks to some of the largest financial planning organizations in the country. So she's got a very keen understanding of the financial service industry and the challenges that it has. So Ann, I know you're going to bring some content in that you have shared with other large financial organizations. I'll let you kind of set the table from here. I'll let you go. Folks, we are going to have time for Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to submit them in the GoToMeeting. And then Steve, after Ann goes for another 10, 15, 20 minutes on her message, feel free to ask questions and stay part of the conversation.
Most definitely.
Great. Thanks, Dave, and thanks everybody for today's call. Really looking forward to it. So as Dave said and as Steve said, what we're going to do today is we're going to set the table and talk about who the generations are. Steve was talking about making sure that we inform, we understand the intrinsic motivations. Well, to do that, we need to know who we are talking to. So first, we're going to talk about who are the different generations. And then after that, we're going to talk about how do we use that information to get more referrals. So first, let's just talk about the aging population. What I mean by that is right now, we have over 10,000 people a day who are turning 60. That's a lot of people who are saying, what do I do with the rest of my life? Do I still work? Do I work part-time? Do I need to work because I need the pension? There's a lot of people out there saying, what do I do? And when you look at the number at the bottom of the screen, 43% of our workforce is going to be leaving 9 to 5 America. Again, they may hang up their own shingle, they may retire in a new way, but they're not going to be working the way that we know it anymore. And as a result, we have to think about how do we bring in the people we are going to be working with, and how do we still make sure that we are servicing baby boomers and traditionalists in the way that they want in terms of their retirement homes and their retirement dreams. So we're going to talk about the different generations. And then as Dave said, I work with Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, UBS, Wells Fargo, and I help them understand what do these three terms, team, advice, service, mean to each generation. It sounds very simple, and yet it is actually very different how each generation sees those terms. And when you understand that, you will be more successful in getting the referrals that you want. Let's just do a quick look at who the generations are. So right now, for the first time ever in American history, we have 4 generations working side by side. They're known as traditionalists, baby boomers, Gen X, and Gen Y. Traditionalists were born between 1929 and 1944. There are a few left in the workforce, mostly in my town, Washington, D.C. They're on the Hill, but we will eventually be able to say thank you for your service. Go out and enjoy yourself. Baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964. They are still the biggest generation overall by population. No other name for this generation. Gen X is my generation. We're born between 1965 and 1980. We have a couple other names. Sometimes we're known as XS. Sometimes we're known as the me generation. And then finally, we go around the corner to Gen Y, there in the green. Gen Y is also known as millennials because they're born between 1981 to 2001. They're also sometimes known as the next generation, as an internet generation. and sometimes known as the wired generation. So right now what you see is who is currently in the workforce. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out when 43% of this workforce leaves, when that money starts to move hands, when they start to figure out what do I want to do if the children are leaving, if I'm an empty nester, what kind of home do I want? We're going to primarily be dealing with the traditionalists and the boomers, and yet we're also going to be dealing with Gen Y as they start to figure out where do I want to go in terms of work, and what does a home actually look like to me. No offense to any traditionalists on the call, but we're just going to focus on what I call the big three. And those are boomers, X, and Y, because that is the generation that most people want to know about. In terms of population, you can see the actual numbers right here. So you can see why we say that Gen X is often the monkey in the middle, and the other two generations, boomers and Y, are known as the bookend generations because they bookend around Gen X. So the good news is for all the loan officers, realtors, that the two biggest generations, boomers and Y, actually have a lot in common. Think of it as a pendulum. If the pendulum starts on one side, to the left, that would be our traditionalists. It would then swing to the right, that would be boomers. It would then swing back to X, underneath traditionalists, and then swing back to Y. So boomers and Ys are on the same side of the pendulum swing. So that's great because they have a lot of similar beliefs and traits and personalities. Their methodology, however, is very different. However, Gen X is right in the middle, and they are very different. So to be successful, to really start to understand how do I get more referrals, we need to understand who are we talking to and what shaped them. And what shaped them is what you see right here. This is research out of Boston that says every generation, which is another way of saying a cohort or a group of people who were born in the same period of time, were impacted and formed by three different types of events: political events, technological events, and social events. And those three types of cultural events then created a message that that group of people, whether the group of people was boomers, X, or Y, took on as a collective psyche, a collective personality. Now, not everybody falls into this. However, you can start to see the similarities and say, oh, those are traits that we can generally say are boomer traits. Those are traits we can generally say are X traits and Y traits. And then when we know that, we can figure out how do we tailor our communication and how do we work with them more effectively in teams. So what I'm going to do right now is take you on a walk through history. We're going to start with boomers and then do X and Y. And we're going to talk about what shaped each generation. So right now we're going through boomers. So again, remember, boomers are born between 46 and 64. So when you look at what shaped this group of people, the biggest group of people born at the same time, what shaped this generation, they said, we shall overcome. Now, it sounds trite to younger generations. However, that is a huge key to understanding this group of people. This is a we generation, a team generation. They do things together. When we look at what they saw in terms of technology, they landed a man on the moon. That had a huge impact on this group of people, and they said, we can do anything. This generation is generally very optimistic, and they truly believe they can change the world because they did. Look at civil rights and all the different things that they helped with Vietnam and women's rights. They did that. When you look at this generation in terms of what shaped them, in terms of what did they see as the norm, yes, we had Woodstock and drug, sex, rock and roll. However, it was about freedom.
Hey, Ann,
Dave, are you
I
still
think we
there?
lost you. Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, so am I.
It looks like we lost Ann. I think she will be back in a minute.
Okay.
You there, Steve?
She might have had a power surge. Yeah, she might have had a power surge of some sort. I don't know the way that sounded.
Yeah, well, we can still see her screen. So, Steve, why don't you and I provide some comments? We'll give Ann a chance to come back in for a minute or two. If she doesn't get in quickly, I'll get into some of my content, and we'll bring her back to finish her presentation in a minute.
Okay, I was just amazed that, like, sometimes when I hear about that the whole generational thing, I say, all right, let me try this out, and I'm not very good at it. But when she was talking about, like, even my generation, which we're on right now, I was born in 55, those things did form a lot of what I believe. And it really was like, we're going to, like, it might sound trite, we will overcome, but we were brought up to say we could do whatever we need to do. All right, and which is another way of saying the same exact thing. So I was kind of interested right at that moment in time when she went out. I'm saying, my God, this is starting to make sense to me. So it was again, pretty interesting to me.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, very interesting to me how our history does impact us in such a big way.
Yeah, and I think the thing that within the context of doing business with CPAs, financial planners, is they are so client-centric. They've got so many different roles that they're speaking to, that they're advising, and that they want to advise. And I know that when I built my practice with CPAs and financial planners, it was on the basis that if you refer someone to me, not only am I going to satisfy that customer, I'm going to wow that customer with advice, I'm going to turn that opportunity into multiple referrals. So, and I think in today's market, given how just aware everybody in financial services is around the millennial opportunity, around the differences between Gen X, millennial, what makes things so different today is that there's really a bigger difference because technology has changed the game. The millennial and the Gen X lives in a land of technology, driven by technology. Boomers, by and large, aren't, or they're not nearly as technically advanced, but they all have mobile devices. So I think, where I'm going with this is between understanding what Ann's hopefully going to come back and be able to complete her overview with, between that and some of the tactics we have at Mortgage Coach in terms of how you teach strategies, how you deliver advice, how you differentiate in the marketplace. I think a mortgage coach, loan officer, is going to be able to meet with a financial planner, whatever, whether they're, most of them are not going to be millennials, most of them are going to be Gen X, and they're going to be boomers. That's where most of the financial planners live. But who they're servicing and how they want to grow their business, they're looking at the entire market. And for you as a mortgage coach to be able to come in there, you're driven with purpose, you're driven with the heart of the teacher, and you're able to use technology in a way that serves everybody. It's just it's a massive differentiator. Now, when I went after CPAs and financial planners back in the day, I was one of the only loan officers that a CPA got a call from or a financial planner got a call from. In today's market, every CPA and financial planner knows a loan officer or two. Obviously they're not getting called on like realtors, but let's face it, a lot of mortgage professionals, a lot of mortgage companies are going after that market. So the demands to differentiate are higher than ever. By the way, Ann, have you made it back in yet? Yeah, so I have to think that she may have had a pretty significant technical challenge.
I think it sounded like it was some sort of power surge there on her phone, where she went out, so I'm not sure. But I will tell you one thing, David. It's funny because, as I mentioned before, my younger son is on his way to Dartmouth, and it's really funny the way him and I communicate because he's been coaching a team down to Allegheny College, down just north of Pittsburgh for the last couple of years, and he insists on contact through texting, which I can't stand. My generation is like, pick up the phone and talk to me, especially if you're my son. He wants to text everything. But now that he's looking for places up in Hanover, New Hampshire, where Dartmouth is, he's realizing that I'm never going to be able to look at these places on my cell phone. So he's emailing me so I can look at it on my iPad. So it's like the two generations are trying to figure out how's the best way to communicate with the other one without giving up what they want to do. So I still don't get him on the phone, but at least now he's emailing me some of that content instead of trying to text me different things. But we're struggling together to figure out how we can get that communication going, and that's just my son. All right, it's not that that's just my son. That's my son. Like, meaning, we want to communicate better. We it's not about business. It's about our lives, and we still struggle with it. So, when we're dealing with, different generations, we have to make sure we understand that. And I think that, when we're dealing with any professional, whether it be a CPA, a financial planner, an attorney, some of the top realtors, they're running big businesses, some of those top realtors. When we're dealing with any real true professional, we have to help them, and we have to realize we have to communicate in certain ways with different generations, because we have to communicate to them in a way they want to be communicated to, the same way we want to be communicated to a certain way. So it's pretty interesting.
No doubt. Say that again.
Going through with my own family right now makes it even more interesting.
Right. Well, I have a feeling, I'm having a bit of a conversation with Ann on chat. Ann, I've given Marcy your mobile number so you and her can talk. I am going to take the screen back at least until Ann comes back in, go through some of the content that I wanted to share. And again, folks, remember we are going to have some time for some Q&A, so be ready to share that. So when I think back about how I executed, the strategy was really, really, really simple. It was as simple as I was able to position myself as an advisor. I was able to position myself as more than a loan officer, and I did that through sharing stories and sharing strategies. So examples of strategies when I'd meet with the financial planner was the concept of, hey, if you make an extra $100, $150, you can reduce your principal, you can pay off your home faster. Now, by the way, most CPAs and financial planners like the idea of, hey, what if you took that $150 and invested it with me? How much would I build up my equity faster, and how quickly can I get to the point where paying off my home was a strategic financial planning decision? The beauty of Mortgage Coach and the beauty of my strategy was I was able to have that conversation with the CPA or financial planner. I was able to have the conversation of mortgaging the home versus using cash to buy the home. That was a conversation that I could illustrate in my total cost analysis. And then the concept of why buy now, where a lot of CPAs and financial planners are getting asked by their clients, which loan should I get? Is it now the time to buy? How much money should I put down on the home? Should I pay MI or not pay MI? And average loan officers, that are using fee worksheets, they're not able to one, support those questions, let alone are they able to provide leadership when they meet with a client. So, my strategy was pretty simple. I had at the time it was pre-mobile phones, so I used a pitch book, which was basically slides that would tell the story. But in today's market, it's about having these stories and strategies on your mobile phone, so that when you meet with that CPA and financial planner, you're asking questions. And again, I don't think a lot has changed, but a lot hasn't changed. So the book, The Art of the Referral, in many ways, 80% of it is just as relevant today as it was 15 plus years ago. What has changed?
I'll say this, if you don't mind me jumping in, I think that you're 1,000%. I think 1,000% right. The core principles will never change. When we get to mental telepathy, is somewhere in the future, that the core principles are going to change about caring for people and everything, but we do have to keep up with the technology. And one of the reasons I love being associated with you, in Mortgage Coach, is the fact that mobile is the new technology. And behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen, Dave is pushing us here at Bridge Builders to get more and more and more mobile. He understands that in our industry, there might not be any person that better understands the importance of going mobile. Not that the principles, the way what we're going to communicate is going to change. I think he's 100% right on that. But the way we communicate it, we have to stay top of the market on that. And what Dave has done at Mortgage Coach is allowed you to look so professional. And when you're dealing with the CPAs or financial planners or any other professional, they like the fact that if they refer you a client, their image is going to be enhanced because you're on top of it. So I think that you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for being old school enough to understand the principles, or still the principles, but also understanding at the same time, but we have to take those old school principles and put it into the new technology.
Absolutely. And by the way, Chuck, I'm going to get to your question. Chuck's asking some questions, how to get past the gatekeeper, how to get the meeting. Again, keep the questions coming, and I'll try to get to all of them. But again, I want to stay on the strategy piece. So here's a strategy and a way to get more referrals from all of your CPAs and financial planners today. First of all, the first-time home buyer piece. Ask your financial planners how many of your clients, have kids that are in that position to be considering, buying a home for the first time. And by the way, they know a lot of them. Ask your CPAs, that have hundreds of families that they serve, would this be helpful to, to the millennials of the clients that are your planning clients? And the answer is yes. So they have a lot of opportunity, they have a lot of need here. And here's a great example of where you're going. You're speaking, you're consulting with a financial planner. Let's say it's a boomer planner who's got a boomer client, but they have a millennial, millennial kids. Whatever, you're going multi-generational and you're delivering an amazing strategy. So first-time home buyer strategy. I would recommend everybody on this call, you create a generic version of this. If you already have CPAs and financial planners, you put it on your call list next time you're talking to them. Again, if you want to kind of learn what I did back in the day, I had a very, very specific process at how often I'd call my clients, how often I would share stories and strategies. But this is a good strategy that could generate a lot of referrals literally this week if you just call them. The other mortgage coach strategy is the cost of waiting and the why buy now analysis. So every time you meet with a CPA or financial planner, you want to walk them through that when you refer a family to me who's considering buying, this is part of the service I'm going to provide. I'm not just going to quote them rates and fees. I'm going to help them understand, should they buy now, should they wait, and what is the cost based off of the realities of their marketplace. So a great strategy that if you went out and you had this conversation with the CPAs and financial planners that you already have, you would generate referrals like immediately. And if you use this to go out and build those relationships, referrals immediately. The other big strategy was just the annual review. And this particular service really resonates with the financial planning community and with the CPA community, because in the case of CPAs, they do taxes once a year. They've got kind of this annual relationship with clients. In the case of financial planners, they are also doing annual reviews. So they have annual relationships. So this concept of, before tax time, asking your CPAs, hey, during tax time, ask your clients, what rates they have. Are they thinking about buying? Remind them that I will perform a mortgage review, an annual mortgage review. It was just a great way. I mean, the 2 to 3 months before tax time, or let's just say actually it was like 2 to 4 months before tax time, I would get just massive amounts of referrals from CPAs with this strategy. And then, this was just part of the heartbeat of my business from financial planners. But I would just kind of leave it with everybody on this call right now. Take your annual mortgage strategy with Mortgage Coach, which, by the way, you have on a mobile phone. Forward that to them, talk to them about it, meet with them about it. A great strategy to generate business from CPAs and financial planners. So, by the way, I'm going to stop real quick, see if Ann has had a chance to come back in. Ann?
I'm back on.
All right. I am going to hand it back to you to finish your movie, and then I'll come back in. So everybody on this call, Mortgage Coach, we're always dedicated to give you the country's best sales meeting every single week. And sometimes the sales meeting doesn't go as planned. Thanks for hanging with us. Hopefully you're getting the content and it's all sinking in. But it's good to have you back, Ann. I'll let you share your slides and continue where you left off.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I apologize for that technological hitch. So before I hopped off, we had the thing about baby boomers and talking about baby boomers and what shaped them. Let's move on now to talk more about Gen X and what shapes Gen X and understanding that about them as well. So Gen X, again, born between 1965 to 1980. When we think about this generation, it's a very different time. This generation was shaped, again, by political, societal, and technological events, and those events sent a message to this generation of people. based on what they saw globally, what they saw nationally. So when you think about this generation and what shaped them, and we think about political, we go from Camelot in the White House, otherwise known as JFK, to a crook in the White House, otherwise known as Richard Nixon. These are not necessarily my political beliefs, but you can start to see how these thoughts are starting to creep into how Gen X sees the world, and therefore how they see you when they're looking for a loan and ready to make referrals if they're a financial planner or a realtor. When we look at what shapes them with technology, absolutely, they're starting to shift in that world. And we're starting to have more of a global look in terms of what is helping them see the bigger world and how they can start to become part of that bigger world. So when people talk about this generation, they say, this generation feels so different. They are different. It's not good. It's not bad. They are different, however, and how you approach them when you ask for referrals, that's very important to understand that difference, which we're going to get into in just a second. And then after Gen X, we're going to go into Gen Y and start to figure out, well, what about this generation? This group of people born between 81 and 2001, what shaped them? If there's one thing that shaped this generation, it is 9/11. Does not mean that 9/11 did not impact every single person in the nation as well as the world. But what it did is it said to this group of people, we are going to connect. We're going to connect to our 5,000 friends on Facebook. We're going to connect to each other, and that is what we're going to do. And so you can start to see how that shapes how they see the world, why they like using Mortgage Coach, because it helps them to connect on a mobile, quick, right-away download type of mentality. When you think about this generation as well, it's about balance. It's about diversity, diversity of the world, diversity of thinking. And you can start to see all these things put together start to shape a generation. I'm going to do a quick summary, and then we're going to talk more about how do you use this knowledge to make sure that you are getting the referrals that you want. So when we talk about the different generations and what shaped them, we know what shaped the boomers, we know what shaped Gen X, and we know what shaped Gen Y, and we need to understand what does that actually mean, and what does that mean in terms of how they see the world. So when we think about boomers, we think about consensus, we think about team, we think about we, and doing things together. That's how they see the world. When we talk about Gen X, how do they see the world? They see it a little differently. They see it in terms of me, because they think, can't trust the government, can't trust my family because of divorce rates, so I'm going to take care of me. It's not bad and it's not good, it's just different. And then finally, how does Gen Y see the world? Again, the pendulum swings, and it's more about the global good, it's more about making a difference, it's more about diversity. So that's who the different generations are, and let's talk about three things: team and service and advice, because if you want to team up with financial planners, with other loan officers, other realtors, with CPAs, you need to understand what team means depending who the generation is. So for a boomer, what does team mean? It means face-to-face in person. It means, yes, that old bricks and mortar. Again, these are gross generalizations, doesn't always fit the bill. It means more formal presentation and seeing the whole team come together. That's what team means to boomers. But what does team mean to Gen X? For Gen X, it means, you know what? The first couple meetings, I'm just checking you out. I'm just seeing if I can even trust you. We're going to move more toward technology, and you know what? I just want to meet the decision makers. I just want to meet the key people. Give me a short presentation and give me a few bullet points for me to take home, and I will follow up with you. Yes, that is what team means to Gen X. Doesn't mean they're not interested in working with you, but how they see it based on their generational lens is different. But what does team mean to Gen Y? Well, Gen Y means let's collaborate. Let's make sure that we can chat with all the technologies. Let's make sure that I get to meet the whole team. I don't want to meet just the decision makers like Gen X. I want to meet the whole team. And I want to make sure that what you have to share with me is edutaining. That's edutaining. What I mean by that is it is entertaining and it is educational. Give me some things that make me laugh, and make sure that you follow up with preferably text or email. So when you're thinking about the tips that Dave was sharing in terms of the annual review and working with the CPAs and the financial planners and the FAs, make sure that you understand what team means to each generation so that you can tailor your approach accordingly. I do want to get into service and advice, but I just want to check in with Dave to see if there's any questions or thoughts about that before we go to service and advice.
No, I mean, other than when you think of team, I want you to think as a mortgage professional, your goal is to be the captain of the wealth team. So you have a family in the middle, and around that family, you have a CPA, you have a financial planner, you have a realtor, you have a mortgage professional, you have different types of advisors. And again, not everybody has a financial advisor, depending on how they manage money and how much they have, but they have a team. And our goal is to be the captain of the wealth team. And then to further complexifies what team means, every family is family. You know, there's parents, there's kids, there's grandparents, there's opportunities. So, you know, when you really do this well at being the captain of a wealth team as a mortgage planner, it's an immense opportunity to serve everyone. It's an immense opportunity to get a massive amount of referrals. So no, Ann, continue. I really want to hear, you know, some of your thoughts on advice and service, and it's great. Continue.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up. So let's talk about advice. Again, advice, people think, oh, advice is advice. Doesn't it mean the same thing? No, it does not mean the same thing. And this is what I work on all the time with financial advisors, helping them understand. Because advice to a boomer will be different than advice to a Gen X or a Gen Y. So advice to a boomer will say, I'm open to your advice. Talk to me about the big picture. Help me, give me the information that I need. They are open to your advice. Gen X says, you know what? I'll take your advice under consideration. Thank you very much. Give me what I need to know. Give me the relevant facts. Make sure that you give it to me in a way that I can understand quickly, and then I'll take your advice and think about it and get back to you. But Gen Y, they don't want your advice at all because they want advice from their peers. They want advice from their community, whatever their community is. And by the way, they probably already asked advice online from their peers before they even talked to you. So when people say, well, how do I give advice? And I'm in this position and I need to give them advice. Yes, you need to help them be successful in making a very big decision. However, you need to understand that your way of looking at advice may be based on your generation, and it will look a little different. And so you need to make sure that you are using the appropriate type of advice for each generation. I'm going to just talk about service real quick and then put it back to Dave. So service, again, people think, but Ann, isn't service service? Yes, it is, depending on your generation. So a baby boomer thinks of service as what we would call kind of a classic service, right? Make sure that I have everything, anticipate my needs, 5-star service. We're looking for just wine and dine me. Gen X, service is very different. Gen X, the idea of service is make my life easy. We are the sandwich generation in terms of how we see the world. We're also the sandwich generation in terms of where we are in our career and our families, taking care of our parents, taking care of our children. So I don't need the whining and dining. I need you to make my life easy. Give me what I need to know. Don't waste my time. Anticipate the data that I'm going to ask you before I even ask you for it. To me, that is service, and you will earn my trust. But if that's what it is for boomers and X's, what about Gen Y? What does service look like to Gen Y? Well, it's about we are all in this together. Anticipate my questions because they have a lot of questions. Versus Gen X, it was anticipate my needs and the data that I want. For Gen Y, anticipate the questions, give me examples, and give me the bigger picture of service, and let me know that we are all in this together. So I'm going to stop and put it back to Dave and Steve and just say, as you think about who you're working with, as you think about informing, instructing, inspiring, and inviting, each generation to your table, whether it's for a referral, whether it's for just getting to know them, really think about who are you talking to when you talk to CPAs and FAs and financial planners, and what generation are they? And then how do you take this information and how they see the word team, advice, and service to really be even more successful than you are right now?
So folks, I mean, a lot to consider. I hope that last part where Ann really broke down what does advice mean to different demographics, what does advice or service mean to different demographics. It's, first of all, it's different. And by the way, within each demographic, it's different. And we do live in a world now where it's more complicated. Not everybody, lives on email. Not, everybody has a different channel in how they want to be communicated. Some people prefer text and live on text. Some people like to meet knee to knee. Some people like to be on the phone. The preferences in how people communicate is varied. The preferences in how people are delivered advice and information is varied. The one thing they all have in common, though, is we do live in a world where everyone has a smartphone. We are living in a world where people are more skeptical than ever. We do live in a world where every answer to every question is a click away. Millennials know this. Xers pretty much know this. Boomers don't necessarily know this. They're not pounding on Google as much as some, and just, when I look at my kids, they don't want to talk on the phone, and two, they would rather get the answer from Google than me most of the time, although that's kids. But the point is it's different. And so I think, for some of the people that are asking questions, one person asked, what's the most important value? By the way, the most important value is different from client to client. You need to meet with the CPA. You need to ask some questions. You need to meet with the financial planner. You need to know their practice well. Again, I talked to some of the questions that I asked in the book, Art of Referral, so I'm not going to get into, here's the 5 questions to ask at every meeting. I will say it's a lot simpler than most mortgage professionals make it. I see one person ask me, how do I get past the gatekeeper? It's not that hard. First of all, if you're leveraging your current customers and you're asking them, who's your CPA, will you introduce me? Who's your financial planner, will you introduce me? Just by leveraging your current customers and friends, you'll have more introductions to CPAs and financial planners than you can probably manage. So getting past the gatekeeper, if you're leveraging your friends and family and clients, isn't that tough. But I mean, the other part of it is just a numbers game. I mean, I could still do my script from, back in the 80s, like the Pledge of Allegiance. Hello, this is Dave Savage with Mortgage Coach Financial. I specialize in working with CPAs and helping them and their clients with their financing needs. Do you ever have clients that ask you about mortgages or have financing needs? You make that call enough times, you say that enough times, you get past the gatekeeper. Again, I'm not one for blunt force, and there's always a better way to do it, but I get back to, you say that script enough times, you call enough people, you'll get past the gatekeeper. That's the easy part. The hard part is when you meet with them, how do you earn their trust and respect in the most rapid way so they actually trust you and give you a referral? And how do you stay top of mind with them so that even though they trust you and they like you, from month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year, they're thinking about you and they're referring to you. And the heart of that is education and insight, using bridge builders, using Mortgage Coach to be an advisor and an educator, and staying in front of everyone. So we're kind of at the top of the hour. Ann, I'm going to give you some thoughts, and then Steve, I'm going to give you the final thoughts since you haven't talked here as we got into closing, and then we're going to wrap up the call. So Ann, anything you want to add as we go into wrap-up mode?
Just want to remind everybody, as Dave said, that everybody is an individual. And yes, these trends about generation and their intrinsic motivations is important. And as Dave said, talk to them as individuals, get to know them, and that will be your most successful key.
Steve Harney, you get the final words of wisdom, my friend.
Well, one of the things that piqued my interest is when someone asks, like, what is the one thing that is important? Ladies and gentlemen, remember, especially if you're dealing with financial planners and CPAs right now, they understand this maybe better than even realtors and mortgage professionals do, that the single most important commodity we have to offer a consumer right now is trust. Trust has been wiped off, and for the CPA and for the financial planner, Bernie Madoff has done irreparable damage to that profession. The same way where crazy mortgage people hurt the mortgage profession, just like, you know, realtors that went way outside of the bounds hurt the real estate profession. We've all been hurt, and the only way to come back from that is that fear that the consumer has right now for everyone. The only way to come back from that right now is to prove that we're trustworthy. So trust is probably the most important commodity we have, and the only way to get trust back is not by selling, but by, as Dave would say, educating the public. We're not trying to tell you what to do. We're not trying to sell you what to do. To let you know what's taking place in the market right now, so you can make the best decision for yourselves and your family. And I think that would resonate dramatically with CPAs and other financial planners, because they realize that they have to rebuild that trust in today's marketplace.
Beautiful. So everyone, want to remind everybody, every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, we are doing a mobile workshop teaching you how to use your mobile devices to share stories, explain strategies, whether it's realtors, whether it's CPAs or financial planners. We're here to do that. I want to remind everybody that we've got a special call on the 21st with Joe Patur and Mitch Kiter, really talking about increasing referral business with our mobile technology. And remind everybody, this call is recorded, just like all of our calls. It's in our YouTube channel. Hopefully this has been a valuable hour with us. As you leave, please answer the survey question. Let us know what you thought of today's call. And as always, really grateful for the time that you took to deliver value, and looking forward to having you back. And Steve, same to you. I hope many of you take Steve up on his offer and attend his session tomorrow. That link is at the bottom, and we'll also put that on our Facebook page. So thanks, everybody, and have a fantastic day and a fantastic week.
Bye now.
Thank you.